All right, so again, yesterday we created this Calc project, if you remember. What I'd like you to do is grab that folder, right mouse click on it, choose copy, right mouse click again and choose paste. You can call it Calc copy if you want. I'm just going to call mine Calc2. The reason for having you do that is you've already got about 2/3 of the code written. So you don't have to do a lot of rewriting from yesterday. All right? So then open up that Calc2 project. We're going to start making changes to it. The idea behind this project is I'm going to show you out parameters and I'm going to show you ref parameters. All right? It's going to look a little bit different, just so you know, even from the start. What we did yesterday, I don't need to make that wide. What we did yesterday, if you remember, is we did this, and then we called these. We're going to still do that. But for this stuff to work with using the out parameters and the ref, remember ref, you have to give values an initial value. So I'm going to come in here, and for all of these, not for number 1 and not for number 2, I don't have to give those values. But for the rest of these, I'm going to give all these values. So I'm going to say here equals 0 for all of these. And I'm just, you don't have to put all those tabs in. I'm just doing it so you can see everything that I'm doing here. You do not have to change, and you do not have to initialize number 1 and number 2. These are both going to be out parameters in just a minute. All right? We're going to make changes as we go on in here. I don't think this is going to take very long, maybe 15 minutes or so. All right? And then I'll give you the hard copy. Like I said, I think, you may or may not agree with this, but I think there's something to be said for you making the changes now and then running it right away and see whether or not it works. All right? Because those are the kind of errors you're going to make when you take the test or you do whatever. All right? So for now, we're just going to leave all the rest of this exactly as it is, except in this while loop, we're going to make a bunch of changes in here. But for now, we're going to put in here out number 1. And in here, it's going to give you errors. We'll fix those errors in a minute. Out number 2. Now, number 1 and number 2, if you look up on the screen here, these do not currently have a value. Would you agree with that? Okay, so they've been declared, but they have not been initialized. Now we're calling them as out parameters, and we're getting an error because in this routine down here, we don't have an out parameter. That's why we're getting that error. We're going to fix that in just a minute. So has everybody changed and made that number 1 and the number 2, all right? You've got both of those set up so that they're not initialized, and you've got them in there as an out parameter, correct? All right. So let's go into that routine. So let's fix this right here. We're not only are we going to fix this, we're going to do the parsing in here. All right, we're going to do a double dot tryparse. So I want to make sure you know how to use this. All right. So the first thing I'm going to say in here is out double n. Notice as soon as I do that, don't worry about it. It says here return n. Don't worry, that'll be fixed in a minute. But the point is, as soon as we do that, our error messages right here went away. Because if it's out here, it's got to be out here. All right? So we're going to make some changes in this routine. All right? In fact, I'm just going to take everything that I've got here, all this stuff, all this, and I'm going to remove it for now. I'm going to keep that return n. And don't worry, because there's a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 8 lines we put in. We don't have to type in a lot. All right? So I'm going to say here string value and I'm going to set that equal to the empty string to start with. All right, and I'm just, you don't have to, but I'm going to put a comment here. Just says temporary variable. You don't have to do that. You can, but you don't have to. All right, then write, enter a number. You've done this before. All right, and value equal read line. All right, we've done this before. The problem is, stop typing for a second. Look up on the screen. We can do this. N equals, don't type this in. Convert dot to double read line. All right, or I'm sorry, value. So I can do this. Okay, value. All right, so I can do all that. There's no errors in here anymore. Notice if I save it and I run this, and I put in a couple numbers. Why it's taking so long, I don't know, but it is. 45 and 34. Boom, everything's cool, not a problem. The problem results in when we do this. So when we run it again and we type in hello, or even better, we leave it blank, the system's waiting and it gives us an error. We want to fix that. That's not professional, that stinks. So let's fix that right now. That's what we're doing in this routine. All right, so I don't have this convert. I'm going to get rid of that. And I've got in here string value, right, enter this. Now I'm going to put in a while loop. And that's everything. Put a space there, but that's the whole routine. I'll give you a second to key that in, then I'll explain it, and then we'll take a look at it in action, so to speak. All right, if you look up on the screen, it's not going anywhere, so if you're still typing, that's fine. But if you look up on the screen, this says exactly what you think. But you already saw what happened if I put something non-numeric in there. Now what we're saying is attempt to take whatever I put in there and parse it. If it works, put it into N. But if it doesn't work, write down invalid input and have you do it again. This is going to keep you in a loop until you put a number in there. So notice what happens now when I run this. Before, if I typed in hello right here, the program blew up. Now it doesn't. Nothing in there? Okay? And it does that both for number 1 and it does it for number 2. So now it's going to work, all right? Now it's going to work even if we put in non-numeric input. That's what the tryparse does. The tryparse says attempt to parse it, attempt to convert it from a string into a number. If you cannot do so, give the user a message that says it's invalid and have them try it again. Then it comes back up and it checks it again. So it does not get down to this line until we have put a number in there. Does that make sense? Not only that, if we happen to fat finger and we put in 4.5.6, That's not a valid number. 4.5 was a valid number. 5.6 is a valid number. But 4.5.6 is not a valid number. All right? So that's going to fix all of our non-numeric type of stuff. All right, let's go back into main, if you would, please. Back into here. And you saw how to do all of these. You know you're all smart people in here. That might be a surprise to some of you, but you're all smart people in here. Every one of these routines right now, every one of these has to return a double because we're stuffing it into sum or into difference or into product or into quotient. Has to work that way. We don't want to do it like that. We just want to call return sum, and we want to call return difference, and we want to call return product, and we want to call return quotient. Now, right now, we're going to have all sorts of problems if we try to do that. All right? Please look up on the screen. By the time we call return sum or return difference or return product or return quotient, we already have a valid first number and a valid last number. I'm not asking you that. I'm telling you that. They're valid. So these are all valid already. But what's not valid, what we haven't set yet, is the sum. And we want to change the value of the sum. So we say ref sum. And then here we say ref difference. We're going to get errors. They'll get fixed in a minute. Then here we say ref product. And in here we say ref quotient. We're getting these errors in here right now because that's not how these functions or these methods, that's not how they're set up down here in our code. We're going to fix that. It's a very simple fix. All right? But we have made all of these ref. So we're passing in the address and memory of where sum lives, the address and memory of where difference lives, the address and memory of where product lives, and the address and memory of where quotient lives. And if that confuses you, every one of these number 1 and number 2, we're passing in copies. These we're passing in the real thing. All right? We need a ref because we initialized all those to 0. We used an out for the other 2 because we didn't initialize those. So we're going to come down. You're going to make the same change basically in every one of these routines. But now, how do we change these? Well, we go down. We're not returning a double anymore. This becomes a void. And we need in here ref sum. And now all we have to do is do this. Sum equals. Not return sum, I'm sorry. So let me get rid of that. Sum equals. Yes.
So isn't it the same just doing if sum was just a global variable? Like could you have done the same thing if sum was
Yes, that's another way we could have done it. There's multiple ways. Yes. So notice what we did. We changed the return type from double to void. We added a parameter and we said ref double and then that name. All right. And then we set that equal. So again, I'm going to come into the next one here, make this a void, add in here ref double difference. Sorry, push that over, push this over. And say difference equal. And you notice that fixed that one. And if you look up on the screen here, notice how those two are now fixed. All right? You can already guess what's happening with the next two. We're going to change the return type to void. We're going to add a ref parameter. And we're going to make that ref parameter equal to the result. So that's the second one. Let's go down to the third one, which is product. Again, make it a void. Add in here ref double product. This becomes product equal. Same thing here. We have one more thing to do. We'll do that in a minute. All right. Now, if you look up on the screen here, all of my errors are gone. There's no errors in here. And guess what? If I run it, Tony asked, could we do it another way? Yeah, but the point is, it should look exactly the same. Same results. All right. Does everybody have all that stuff typed in? All right, one more thing I want to do. You don't have to do this, but I want to do this. I think it sucks that we've got while 1 equal 1. I don't like that. I want to run the program, and then when we're done, I want to ask the user, do you want to run it again? And if she or he says yes, we'll run it again, but we don't have to click that. Understand what I'm saying? We're going to write one more routine, and the routine has a total of, if I can find it. There it is. We're going to stick this right in our main loop. We could call it from main, but we'll put it right in our main loop. About 10 more lines. All right, go back up to the top of your program. We're going to add a couple variables up here. All right. So up at the top of the program, we're going to add a couple of variables. 3 to be exact. The first will be a Boolean. Then we're just going to call this again. And I'm going to set that equal to true. And what that is it's saying, do you want to run the program again? Well, I'm assuming you're going to want to run this multiple times. Maybe that's a bad assumption, but that's what I'm assuming. I'm going to have another variable, which is going to be a string, that's just called response. And I'm going to set that equal to the empty string. And another string that's called first char. And I'm going to set that equal to the empty string. All right? So this will be our program continue variable. This will be the answer to run program again. This will be the first character of that answer above. All right, so we added 3 variables. All right, right now we're saying this, while 1 equal 1, which put us in an infinite loop. That stinks. So we're going to say here instead, while again. And the comment will change to same as while again equal true. All right. Couple more lines and we're done. So we run this. Right now it's going to be in an infinite loop. But when we get done, after we've displayed everything, all right, now we're going to come down here and we're going to say write, run, program again. Y or N. All right, and this will say response equal read line. So that's going to ask us if we want to run the program again or not. Response. Why am I getting that error? Hold on. Okay. That's why we got that error. There we go. Okay. Now, when the program runs, Okay, if you look up on the screen, if you don't stop for just a second, look up on the screen. Now notice it'll run. I put in a number, I put in another number, and it says now run program again, yes or no. But I'm not testing that value yet. So it doesn't matter what I put in here, it's going to run it again anyway. Does that make sense? So we've got to test that value to make sure it's what we want. All right? Now, I'm going to show you something, and it's kind of cool. I don't know, maybe you don't agree. But I'm going to put in this. First char equals response dot substring, and go ahead and type it in. Whoops. And I'll tell you exactly what it means in just a minute. All right? There's only about 4 or 5 more lines, so I'm just going to put them all in. And that, and one more line, which will be read line to stop the, anything from running here. That'll be the rest of the program. That's it. So I'll give you a second to put that in. We'll talk about it. Hopefully you'll get yours to work. What I'll do right now is I'll give everybody a hard copy while you're finishing that up. And if you can go back and look at this and understand it, you're on your way to understanding methods, including Tryparse, including what the difference is between having an infinite loop and a non-infinite loop, etc. Everybody get a copy? Must have printed out one too many, but that's fine. All right, if you look up on the screen here, let's talk about what everything in here is doing. It probably makes sense to you. It says, do you want to run the program again? Yes or no? We put in a response. So let's assume when we do this, it comes up on our screen and it says, run program again. And it says YN. So our cursor is sitting right here. All right? But we type in yes. And we hit enter. So yes is what's going to go into here. That make sense? All right. Then we say, hey, I want you to start at position 0 of our answer and go just one position and uppercase it. So this is grabbing just the first character and it's converting it to uppercase. Then I can check and say if that is not a capital Y, they put in something other than yes. So again is false, which means I don't want to run the program anymore. All right? And this console.clear says every time I do a new program run, it'll clear the screen. And then when I'm all done, do a read line so it doesn't disappear from the screen. That's everything. Now again, what I have found is, let's say that you look at this and you're like, do I get it? Yeah, on a 1 to 10, about a 5. I would go back then and put comments in the program yourselves. Whenever anything's happening, make sure you understand what's happening. That way you've got it documented. All right? And if I'm going to keep doing this and printing out hard copies, I don't want to put tons of comments in there because I'd rather print you out a couple pages as opposed to 5 or 6 pages. All right? So again, with all that stuff in there, if I save it and run it, all right, if I put in invalid, yeah, it asks me to do it again. I put in invalid, it asks me to do it again. Now it gives me my stuff. Do I want to do it again? Yes. Now it cleared the screen for me. Looks a little bit nicer. By and large, console programs don't look that professional. This doesn't look professional. It could look a hell of a lot worse, though. All right. Questions on this? Anybody? All right. Now I'm done. I don't know why it's still there. Oh, I got the read line. There we go. Everybody hopefully got it to work. If you didn't, you've got the code. All right. So if everybody would please do this. We're going to do number 7 that's on your assignment as a class right now. So click your double disk icon to do a save all. Or else do a file save all. It doesn't matter. Then do a file close solution. So your screen should look like this. And then do a file new project. All right. And we're going to do number 7. So let's take a look in the book. They tell you to call this averages. They've already got it there, so I'm going to just call mine averages 2, but you can call yours averages. All right? It'll be a console app again, and we're going to click OK. Now, just so you are aware of what we're doing, again, we're doing number 7. So I'm going to grab all of this stuff that's in there, and I am going to grab it and put in a comment in here. Come on. Copy. And I'm going to throw a comment in at the beginning of the program. All right, so way up on top here. Oops. And I'm just going to come in and paste that in. Okay. So write a program named averages that includes a method that accepts any number of parameters, displays them, and displays their average. Demonstrate the program works correctly by passing in one number, 2 numbers, or an array of numbers. So that's what we're going to do right now. I tried to keep it as simple as I could. Right now you've got 27 lines. The whole program, you're going to have to type in around 50 lines. But I thought it would be worth it just to show you what's going on here. All right? Also, I wanted to put some variety in it, so I wanted to make sure that every single time we ran the program, we got new numbers. Otherwise, it's kind of boring to always put the same numbers in there. So, up here, after it says class program, okay, I put in this. Static random RND equals new random. Again, this is called seeding the rand. It's trying to make sure that every time we run this, we've got different random numbers. That's all it's doing. All right? So let's make some variables. I only have one other routine in here, so I did much of the work is done inside of main. All right? So here I'm going to say int num1 equals rnd.next 100. If you don't know what that means, it means give me a random number between 1 and 100. That's all it means. And I'm going to make 3 of these. Looking at on the screen there, does it make sense to you? This is going to give 3 different numbers. It's possible it could be the same number 3 times. That's not very likely, but it could happen. All right. Then we're also going to create an array called nums, and we're going to set that equal to a new int, and we'll make it have 10 values in it. I don't know if it really pays to put comments here. This is just going to say first random number, second random number, third random number. You can put those in if you want to. All right. And this is going to say array of 10 random numbers. That's it. This is going to fill up that array with 10 random numbers. Does what we've done so far make sense? All right. We're going to call a routine now that we have not written yet. Did everybody hear me? We are going to call a routine we have not written yet. We're going to call it 4 times. The first time we call it, we're going to pass it in just this. Then we're going to call it again and pass it in both of these. Then we're going to call it again and pass it in all 3 of these. Then we're going to call it again and pass in the array. We're going to get 4 errors because we have not yet written the routine. So it'll be all the red squigglies. Don't let it bother you. All right? I call the routine find the average. You could really call it anything you wanted to, but since we are finding an average, that made sense to me. All right? So, like I said, you're going to get errors on the next 4 lines. And when we're all done, I just want to do a read line because I don't want the stuff to show and then spit right off the screen. So the only thing that we have left is to write the find the average program. And there are probably about 20 to 25 lines in there. So yeah, it'll take us, a few minutes. All right, I'm hoping we can be done by 10:15. Then you get a break till 10:30, and you have, again, an hour and a half approximately of lab time today. That's the goal. Again, tomorrow, written test, Chapter 7, lab rest of the period. Friday, lab all period. All right? Now, when I meet with you next week, any one of you can say whatever you want. All right? But let's just say Tony says, you don't give us enough lab time. I would fight with you on that. I know there are plenty of other instructors here that give almost no lab time. They just expect you're going to do all your work at home. I don't like to do that. I want you to have somewhat of a life. I've realized, though, that seriously, it's not a joke, and I don't have to laugh. You don't have to feel sorry for me. But with my wife not being here, I don't have a life. All right? My life sucks, basically. Hopefully it'll get better soon. We'll sell my house, and it'll get better because she'll move here. All right. So now I want to come in here, and I want to write this. Again, I sometimes go in, you don't have to do this, but I sometimes come in here and do stuff like this. Put a begin statement there, and I put an end statement here. You don't have to do that. It doesn't make the program run any better, but I know now where my main ends by looking at that. All right? You say, well, I already know. Then don't do it. It's fine. So we're going to say here static, void, find the average, but we're going to say params, int, bracket, list. Okay, why am I getting the squigglies for my read line? Why am I getting squigglies right there? I need that up at the top. Using static system.console All right. Now, if you notice, all my errors went away. The frickin' routine isn't doing a darn thing right now, but the errors are all gone. That shows you I can call find the average and pass it one variable or two variables or three variables or an array of 10 variables. And I don't get an error because this params is designed that it will accept any number of parameters. All right? I would have called it like var params or something, but they called it that, and it's fine. So let's fix this. Well, what do we want to do? If we pass in three numbers, if we pass in 36, 11, and 8, how do I find that average? I'm asking you. How do you find it? Add them together. 36, 11, and 8. 8, 9, 15, 1, and it looks, if I did it right, it's 55. Then what do? Divide by 3. In this case. And it comes out to 18.3, something like that. Everybody agree with that? That's the exact same thing we have to program in here. All right? The problem is, we could end up writing a lot of code depending on how we write it. So we're going to try to write it to not write a lot of code. All right? So let's create three variables. Double, count. All right? And we'll set that equal to 0. That's going to be how many we have. We could make that an int too, but that's fine. All right. Double total, we'll set that equal to 0. And double average, and we'll set that equal to 0. Again, some people who are C# purists would say, hey, you know what? When you're doing this, it should be 0.0 for each one of those, because that's what you really should do with a double. And I'm not even going to argue with people who say that. It's not a bad thing to say. It's not a bad thing to do. All right. So now I've got those three variables. Now we could run through a for loop, but this is the first time, probably for at least some of you, we're going to use a for each loop. You just told me what to do with those numbers. We're going to add them up, but we're going to do it in a for each loop. All right? So we're going to do this. For each int number in list total plus equal number plus plus count. We're getting there. You got somewhere around 10 lines of code to type in yet, then we're done. All right? This is doing exactly what you just told me we'd do. And what this variable, was that your test you took the other day when we said inside of a for each loop, it was called an iteration variable. Remember that? That's what this is. We just made it up on the fly. I can call it F it. It doesn't matter. You can call it Ralph. You can call it anything. You can call it X. But since it's a number I'm adding, I called it number. So if I've got 36, 11, and 8, it's going to run through that 3 times. And total equals total, which was 0, plus 37. Then run it again, plus 11. Run it again, plus 8. And it's telling me I've got 3 numbers. All right? So now when I do this, average is equal to exactly what you just told me, total divided by count. All right? Now, you don't have to change this, but if you look up on the screen, please, everybody, if you look for just a second, really, probably, that should have been an int. It really would have made more sense to do that. Because, and you don't have to do it, but it makes more sense because that's how many numbers we have. We don't have 6.7 numbers. So really, it's cleaner to do it that way. You can leave it the way it was, or you can change it. But it is cleaner to do it that way. All right? So now all we have to do is write out our output. I could have put this in a separate method. I didn't. Enter a few times here. All right? So I've got, first I got a write line here. Remember now, you're smart enough, all of you should know the difference between a write and a write line. Right keeps you on the line you were on. Right line moves you down to the next line. All right? So I'm going to say here, there were a total of, I'm going to put this over 2 lines so you can read it. Oops, forgot my pen. All right, why do you give me an error? I don't want that. There we go. So again, with the example I gave you before, if we had 37, 11, and 8, we now know what our total is. We now know what our average is. So this will say there were a total of 3 numbers. Does that make sense? All right. Now we could just print out the average, boom, and be done. But isn't it a little nicer to let the user see what the numbers are? All right. So I did that. And how did I do that? I added another for each loop. I can use the name number again, not a problem. I put a couple blank spaces between each number. We could have put a comma. I don't really care. So now, this, after I do this, what we've got so far is it's going to say there were a total of 3 numbers. Then on the next line, it's going to say 37 space space 11 space space 8. So all that makes sense? Now, you might not like that. You might find that confusing. If you want to, you don't have to do this. But we could have written here, write the numbers were, all right, something like that. So now, if we do that, instead of looking like this, it's going to look like this. The numbers were 37 space space 11 space space 8. That's what we've got so far. Everything makes sense? All right. One more right line, and we're done. Again, I'm going to put it over 2 lines. You can put yours in 1 line. You can put it in 2. Really and truly doesn't matter. And I'm going to tell it that I want it to be F2. So I want it to be to 2 decimal places so I don't get some god-awful looking number. So this should now say, if these were our numbers, it should now say the average of the numbers is 18.33. Does that make sense? What I want you to get out of this, and the reason I decided to do this with you, is this thing. This means we can run this and call it once by passing in 1 value, again with passing it in 2 values, again with 3, and again with an array of 10 values. So if I save this and run it now, there's my output. Does what's happening make sense to everyone? It's not a big program, but if you had any problems, again, here is a hard copy for you. It's just front and back. That's it. So I am done. If you want to take a break, please do. But rest of the period is yours. And ideally, you're going to be working on the labs that have been assigned for 6, 7, and 8. Those labs are due next Wednesday, the day after the hands-on test. Did you hear that? And again, tomorrow you will have over 3 hours to work on this. Got an hour and some minutes now, and on Friday you will have 4 hours to work on it. So ideally, you'll have enough time to get it done. All right? All right. I'm done lecturing.